Yeah, I was gonna ask about landing crosswind because,
Mhm.
well, yeah, I think that's something I need to get better at.
I think
Um,
we all do.
I mean, there's a bunch about crosswind that needs to be considered. One is, how am I going to fly the pattern when the wind isn't doing what it normally does relative to my canopy? So like downwind leg, you might have a push to one side. Base leg, you might have a push to a different side. So I think it's important to anticipate that, to sort of visualize where the sky is trying to move you to at all times, and how that is going to, basically alter your, not only your pattern points, right? So you move your pattern points into the wind, but also change your heading by, sort of looking down and then observe where you're moving to, on the ground, your ground track, as we call that, where you're going to, and you might have to change your heading quite a lot to make it move where you want to go. Basically, the more you need to alter your heading away from where you're going, the slower you're going to go there. And I think that's a very important idea because it helps you adapt the pattern, right? So in other words, if it's downwind leg, but just a little bit of an angle to the wind, you might only have to change your heading 5 or 10 degrees to move where you want to go. All right, that's not going to be a life-changing circumstance, but it could very well be that on the base leg, it's getting you to the outside towards, a space where you're going to be too far from the target or something. And so anticipating where things are going to draw you to is also an important part of crosswind. And then the other part, of course, is knowing that brakes are very effective in extending your glide when you have a tailwind within a few degrees, like call it 15 degrees plus or minus of where you're going, right? So if the wind is a little like this or a little like that, brakes are probably still the best means to extend your glide, but otherwise rear risers are your best tool. It may not be the full amount that you would do in a no wind day, that 60 to 70% of the rears, but it's going to be, in general, the rear risers over the brakes are going to be better because you have got more speed to fight that crosswind with, right? That's your only power. And so what I would suggest is just sort of automatically, when you know that it's a crosswind setup, to primarily use your rear risers. I mean, you can use them for steering, you might as well. But what I mean is, if you need to enhance your glide ratio because you're a little behind, you're a little late, and you need to get somewhere without a lot of altitude loss, then you would be using a little bit of rear risers. The other part is, I'm on final approach. I got to make a little, crab angle. I got to turn a little bit to negate the wind's tendency to slide me away. And that means I'm not going to glide quite as far as I would have otherwise. So anticipate that. But it's not like you need to keep correcting for it. People get confused about that. You just point in the direction that moves you where you want to go. When you sort of look down at your line where you're going, just adjust that heading and then leave it alone. It shouldn't keep drifting. And if the canopy keeps drifting in one direction, it's not the crosswind, it's some asymmetry somewhere inside the system. It could be the parachute lines are out of whack. It could be the canopy itself is out of whack. It could be the risers are asymmetrical. There's a puppy dog in the background making noises. I can hear you. Do you want a biscuit? What is it? You want to go outside? You want to go for a walk? Mess with your doggy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who that is. So there's there's this illusion, I guess, people have, that you need to steer into the wind sort of repeatedly. But if your parachute wants to turn continuously, it ain't the crosswind. That's you. That's something within this smaller context, of you. So then when you talk about landing, you're dealing with, for one thing, the parachute wants to drift to one side and you're negating it with this heading change, right? So I'm going in the direction that I want to move across the ground because I turned into the wind a little bit. And in full flight at this speed, there's no problem. But when I flare, I change speed, right? So as I slow down, the parachute's going to want to drift to the side more. And I can certainly draw that out. I think that's kind of a helpful drawing that I've done numerous times. All right, so let's start off with your canopy, which is pretty. Okay, so now we're gonna do a vector. I'm gonna change my, okay, so here is my parachute's flight path through the atmosphere. Then I'm gonna add to it the crosswind. So maybe there isn't a lot of crosswind, but there's something. And then we can fill in the blanks here with the closing of the triangle. That's how we create the sum of those. So the purple is where I'm moving to, right? So the red line is where my eyes are pointed unless I turn my head. It's where my canopy is pointed. But that purple line is where I'm drifting to, given the length of that red vector. The length is reflective of the speed, right? A vector is simply the direction and magnitude of your energy. So then if I was to, let's say, let's go to here. I flare to half breaks. I flare like halfway. Oh, yellow is kind of hard to see, but you're just going to have to squint. Maybe I can change it to black. Sorry, I'm coughing like crazy. I think I got my kid's cold, which was, I think, grandma's cold before that. So now I take my wind vector and, where it was, was giving one net result. But now just by going to half breaks, I completely change the equation to, let's say, this light blue. This is my direction of motion. When I cut my ground speed in half, right? When you flare, you cut down airspeed, but much more importantly, the top view, your ground speed, is going to be what's giving you the net result of where you're moving to. So there is this tendency to do a J pattern when you're crabbing with respect to the wind. And originally you made a heading change. I think I can probably, I'm going to try this. I've never used this before. Nope. Can I rotate it? No, I can't rotate it. All right. I'm trying something new. It's fun. Let's go with, if I go like that, can I rotate? You trying to tell me I can't rotate this thing? Okay, I got a better idea. I'm just going to go like this. So this was my imaginary runway that I was on. And I was following that runway, moving in this direction, along the purple line, because I turned my parachute a little bit to the left. Again, the pink is the wind line, right? So I can draw that again over here, right? So let's change the color to pink. Oh, you're not going to let me do that? This is going to be annoying. Okay. In paint, it lets you change it after you draw it. Okay, so there I've got my windsock with the wind moving this way. And it's a crosswind landing of, let's say, about 30 degrees is my guesstimate. So I have this tendency as I flare to suddenly go sideways in terms of my ground track. As I start to move sideways, that result is going to be not only moving sideways, but also looking to the side. Everybody does it unless they're highly skilled and trained. You're going to look where you're going. And as you look off of where you're moving to, or more importantly, as you look away from where you're kind of wanting to move to, right, which is down that runway. I want to be going this way, but I'm flaring and I'm sliding this way. As I look away from my intended destination, better words, I will naturally do things that will cause a crash. In the sky, actually, I think it has a sense of humor, because when you land in this configuration, crosswind, and you flare, in ground effect, when you're close to the ground, one wingspan above the ground, you start to get the influence of planet Earth altering the airflow in your system. It's not just the air that's going around your wing. You have a much larger system of airflow, which involves wingtip vortexes. And when you get near the ground, those wingtip vortexes go away, which is awesome. You get a better landing because you're close to the ground. Your stall speed is lower because you're close to the ground. Here's the problem. When you're crosswind, one of the wingtip vortexes goes away before the other. The air kind of gets underneath your wingtip and tries to turn you on the roll axis. Remember, roll is this way, tries to turn you away from the wind. It's not only sliding you sideways, which is naturally making you want to look off of where you want to go, which is going to cause a crash, but the wing wants to roll, which also is trying to make you crash. So you've got this adding up of things. Now, does that mean that you're going to crash? And I say, no, of course not. I say that because I know how to do it. And if I know how to do it, you can do it. Basically, your job is, number one, to manage your parachute's heading regardless of its airspeed so that you are turning your canopy during the flare to rotate more and more into the wind. So you're not sliding sideways because of the flare. You're not sliding sideways because as you flare and lose your airspeed, you're gently rotating your canopy into the wind. And that can be sort of leading with one hand in the flare. It can be sort of flaring and then making the turn. It can be more severe maneuver, where as you get more experience, you're laying the canopy on its side. There's lots of options, but the bottom line is, as you flare, you lose speed. And as you lose speed, you have to turn more and more into the wind. So the other thing is, as you flare, you're getting into ground effect close to the earth, and it's going to cause the wing to want to turn off of the wind line, away from the wind, where the windward wing wants to rise. So if you have greater wing loading on your windward wing, right, the wingtip that's on the wind side in a crosswind, you lean your harness, you're going to lay up on one side of it. You can't see my ass very well here, but I guess if I tilt the camera down, maybe you can see a little bit more. So you lean into the turn. So as I'm flaring, I actually lay on one leg strap a little bit, and that's going to actually help my canopy to remain at a 0 roll angle. As I'm flaring, I'm not really trying to turn the canopy is that much. I'm mostly trying to keep it level. It's trying to roll away from the wind. So I'm going to put a little bit more weight on that side of the parachute as I flare, mostly symmetrically, until I get a little deeper, and there might be a gentle yaw of the canopy that I deliberately do to face into the wind, or at least closer to the wind, to the wind line. And as a result, it's not just like something that you suffer through, like, oh, it's a crosswind, oh, this just sucks, oh, it's so horrible, so scary. You start looking forward to it. I deliberately, when there's nobody around, I will deliberately come in off the wind line and carve into the wind because it's more fun. And I want you to think of it that way too. Don't be scared of it. Just understand how to do it and work up to this skill set where you can do it without thinking about it. So you do it up high. You know what I mean? You first, maybe you work on flaring and doing a gentle turn, just, 20 degrees, just a little bit, but you want to end up with your parachute centered over your head. Right? I don't mean centered on the pitch axis. I mean on the roll axis, where if you do dip a wingtip just a little bit towards where you want to turn, you center it to a 0 roll angle by the end of the flare so that you can minimize the stall speed, because the more rolled your wing is, the higher the stall speed is. And that's a function of load factor. The more you roll your wing, the more you have to increase your angle of attack to prevent a descent. And that means that you're going to gain weight. And when you gain weight, the parachute stalls at a higher airspeed. So more running required in your landing. And it's running that involves you being sort of at a funny angle, which can result in some sort of an ouch. So yeah. So I know it's a long answer, but it's a big question. How do I deal with crosswinds? It's a very big question.
What if this was the best jump of your life?
laughter, or I can see tears. I see a choice, love or fear. What do you choose? I can see peace, or I can see war. I can see sunshine, or I can see a storm. What do you choose? Now I choose to love with freedom flies from my heart where the light keeps shining. And I choose to feel the whole world crying for the strength that we can rise above. I choose love. I choose love. I can see sharing, or I can see greed. I can see caring, or poverty. So what do you choose? I can see gardens, or I can see bombs. I can see life or death coming on strong. So what do you choose? Now I choose to love with freedom flying from my heart where the light keeps shining. And I choose to feel the whole world crying for the strength that we can rise above. I choose love. I choose
With the power of science? Oh my god. Bye. Science?